Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thanks for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Bushcraft Padawan. If you've been watching my last few monthly all-day videos, and if you haven't, I'm linking to them in this corner of the screen. If you've been watching these, you'll know that for the past few months I've been struggling with my brown bag water filter. I found that it's been very slow, painfully slow, unbelievably slow to actually filter the water that I've been choosing as my water source through to give me a decent quantity in a decent and reasonable amount of time. And I've been scratching my head about this for several months. In my last video, my October all-dayer, many of you responded to my challenges that I was facing and giving some advice, and a big thank you to everybody that gave me some advice off the back of that video. Thank you very much. However, most of the advice that you gave, and I'm not knocking you for giving it because you weren't aware otherwise, but most of the advice that you gave, I'd followed that advice, but off camera, it wasn't in the video. So things like making sure that this bag is thoroughly prepared when I first opened it months ago. I did that. I soaked it for about a week, constantly agitating the fibres, wringing it out, re-soaking it, wringing it out underwater, rubbing the material together, using a scrubbing brush on the inside and the outside of it. I did that several times a day for a full week when I first purchased it. And then whenever I go out now, I soak it in advance the night before. I place it into a waterproof bag the next day and go out with me. And then even in situ in the woods, I'll place this underwater and I'll wring it out and saturate it again. But of course, all of that happens off camera. So many of you are suggesting that I do that, and thank you once again for your recommendations, but I'd already done that. Few people suggested put it in the washing machine, as indeed does the manufacturer of this, Rupert Brown. I've held off on doing that. I'm just mega mindful of if there's any minute trace, even if I flush the washing machine through, if there's any minute trace of detergent, it could trash this. So I haven't gone that far yet. It's still been rankling with me, it's still been ticking away in my head as to why I'm having this problem. And as I said in my October all-dayer video, I was wondering whether it was down to the sheer amount of tiny debris, tiny pieces of debris that were in that water. In my last video, I used my black metal mug to actually scoop the water out and pour it into this after this had been soaked to try and minimize the agitation of the water. And even as I was doing that, even as I was skimming the water from that pond, I could see that the water was browny black in its very nature. Even though I couldn't really see any debris in there, there clearly was. So a big part of me is thinking it's got nothing to do with the bag or the preparation of the bag. It's the sheer filthiness of the water that's stopping this bag. Let me rephrase that. It's the sheer filthiness of the water that is making this bag do its job, which is to filter it. And the dirtier the water, I think, the slower the filter will be. There's a good way of testing this, isn't there? And that's to put clean water through this. Duh. So that's what this video is all about. I've come out into the woods with some fresh, clean water out of my tap at home. This has been thoroughly prepared at home. I've also brought out a Tupperware box into the woods because there's no water source here. I'm going to resaturate this, and then on camera I'm actually going to fill the millbank bag up, the brown bag up should I say, let it drop down to that safe filter level, put a container under it, start my watch and see how long it takes to fill up a black metal mug of water. Then I'll time a second black metal mug of water, so that will be 1 litre in total. Let's get on with this scientific experiment. That bag is now absolutely toppers with fresh, clean drinking water straight out of the tap. I'm going to give it a few minutes now for it to run down to this point on the bag here. the stitching mark that you can see. Once it's ran down to there, I can be safe if I were out in the woods doing this for real with unsafe water or potentially unsafe water. I could be confident that once it's run from the top down to this line here, that any excess water has now run off, which would contain a contaminant. I can then put at that point my water collection vessel underneath the bag and start to collect the runoff. So a few minutes to wait for it to run from about here where it is at the moment down to this stitch line. This bag is no longer toppers with water, it's sunk down to that stitch line that I mentioned earlier on, which now means that any runoff from this bag from this point onwards is water that has been filtered and is safe to collect prior to boiling. So I've got my black metal mug here. I'm going to place this under the water and I'm immediately going to start my stopwatch to see how long it takes to fill up this metal mug with clean water through this filter bag. Here we go. Just looking at this, now that I have a visual reference of the water being collected and not just dripping into the mud, just looking at this stage, I can already see this is filtering and therefore filling the mug much quicker than any other occasions where I've used the bag. Some of you will be sat there smirking thinking, well, of course it is, Craig, it's clean water. And that's exactly the point that I think I'm going to make in this video, but I don't want to count my chickens before they've hatched. Let's wait for this to fill up. Let's wait for a second mug to fill up, and let's just see how long it's going to take in total to fill up 2 mugs of 500 mils each, a litre in total. I've now just got to 9 minutes. Hopefully you can see that on the bottom of the watch there. 9 minutes 1 second, and for me, that's the point, that's the height that I would take this away and I would get it into a fire and I would start putting that, heating that metal mug up in the water for 2 centimetres to a rolling boil for 2 minutes. It's taken me 9 minutes to fill that mug up for the amount that I would want to drink a hot chocolate or a tea or something like that. I'm going to get rid of that water. I'm going to restart my stopwatch from the 9 minutes 1 second, and I'm just going to see how long it's going to take to fill that second half litre, that second 500 mils. I'm interested to know whether the weight of the water as a mass within the bag helps to push it through or whether it has no bearing at all. So let me get rid of that water. Place that back underneath. And let's start the stopwatch again. Let's go for the second 500 mils, 1 litre in total. I've just stopped my stopwatch at 22 minutes. So 22 minutes to filter 1 litre of water. And as you can see by the level on that mug there, that's roughly at the same height it was for my 500 mils. So it took 9 minutes for the first mug and it took 13 minutes. Is that right? 19, 20, 21, yeah, 13 minutes. I was using my fingers and toes there. 13 minutes to fill the second mug, 22 minutes in total. There we have it, folks. My scientific test is over and done with. It looks like, doesn't it, that it's nothing to do, or it's been nothing to do with the preparation of my bag, both prior to and immediately before I start filtering, because I've done everything in the past that I did today. So the two are the same. It does look like, doesn't it, that it's the cleanliness of the water that I've been putting in that has reduced the filtering, and that today when I put clean water in, it filtered much more quickly. Now, when you say that out loud, there's kind of this light bulb comes on above my head that says, duh, yeah, obviously. But it's just interesting, isn't it, that my expectation was that it would or should filter as quickly when I'm doing this for real as it does under these perfect conditions. And let's be honest, that's an unfair and unrealistic expectation on my part. The bag is designed to filter dirt out. If there is dirt in the water, that dirt is going to stay on the inside of the bag, thankfully, and therefore reduce the water flow through it. So the fact that the bag filters slowly when the water is dirty is a good thing. It's doing its job. I guess, I don't know, just with the modern pace of life or the way that I like things done, I want the best of both worlds. I want it to be fast, but I want it to be clean. And clearly my preference would be that it's clean rather than it's fast. So it's been an interesting experiment today, and I guess it's reset my expectations about how these water filtration bags should work. For those of you that are watching that are thinking, wow, it took 22 minutes to filter 1 litre of water, you could use this water filter or that pump or this other water filter and do it in a fraction of the time. I don't disagree with you at all. I know there are some water filters out there, some of a more mechanical nature, a more hand-operated nature, that would do it much more quickly. But they're mechanical and they're hand-operated. And for me, I want something that I can almost fire and forget. I can set it up, I can let it filter, and I can be cracking on doing other things, not wasting time and calories and anything else on just that one process. It can be running concurrently in the background. That's okay for me. For some people, I appreciate you maybe have the time and the time, I guess, to be able to mechanically filter that water. I don't want to do that, and I also don't want to be reliant upon the mechanical nature of that water filter not breaking down. There's not a lot can go wrong with a brown bag, a water filter bag, as long as you don't puncture it and you use it correctly. So thank you for joining me in my rigorous scientific experiment today. For those of you that have been following along and have been making suggestions on my videos around my brown bag usage, hopefully this has put it to rest now. It wasn't the preparation, it was the dirtiness of the water that I have been using, and unfortunately will probably still continue to use, because it's the only water source in those woods. Although a former colleague of mine, Hoppy, alright Shed if you're watching, has suggested that I dig a gypsy well in the vicinity of that standing water. And I think he's onto something there. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please do give it a thumbs up. There is a share button below. You know what to do with it by now. And throughout this video, there has been a subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Perhaps you've already clicked on it in the past. Perhaps you've clicked on it during this video. If you don't fall into either of those two categories, why not click on it now in this corner of the screen, and as if by magic, you'll become a subscriber. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.